Today's guest is Anne-Marie Imafidon, computer scientist, mathematician, and trailblazing in STEM. A child prodigy who passed her GCSEs in computing at age 10. She later earned her master's from Oxford by 19. She is the co-founder of Stemettes, an award-winning initiative empowering young women to pursue a career in tech. You might even recognize her from the TV show Countdown. She is extremely passionate about STEM, and Anne-Marie is shaping the future of tech and innovation one at a time. Today, she joins me with one of her volunteers from Stemettes called Neha, who is currently on the youth board and studying at university. So let's get into the episode. Hello, welcome to the Women in STEM podcast. Would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Hi, my name's Neha. I am on the Stemettes Youth Board as one of their social media advisors. And then alongside that, I'm also a student at university studying physics at Imperial College London.
And I am Anne-Marie Imafidon. I'm CEO of Stemettes, author of She's in Control, which if I lean that way, you can see. And I get to do lots of different things in addition to that.
It's wonderful to have you both on the podcast. Can you tell us a bit about the story behind Stemettes and why it was created? I know that it reaches over 65,000 young people, and I'm sure the viewers would love to learn more.
Sure. So Stemettes has been going for 12 years, and it's all about engaging, informing and connecting young women and young non-binary folk aged from 5 all the way up to 25 years old with STEM, being science, technology, engineering and maths, which I don't have to explain here, but you know, these things you just roll off your tongue. And also STEAM, that includes art and design, because there's so many elements of that are useful and are needed for STEM careers. And I myself am a computer scientist and also a mathematician, and ended up working in industry and didn't actually notice initially that I was the only girl in a lot of the spaces where I was doing computer science and doing tech. I also didn't know STEM was a thing. And so ended up about 13 years ago realizing this at a big conference and thinking, oh my goodness, why it's not right that it's just me here enjoying myself, playing with the databases, building the technology, all the rest of it. But also at that point, Instagram was getting really big. And I kind of looked around a little bit and saw that folks were talking about STEM and talking about these things in educational spaces, but actually not talking about STEM that was genuinely happening at that point, right? And I think there's so much that's being driven in life as we know it that folks aren't able to tie that to what they see in school or what they understand of what the subjects are. But that really is the exciting part of what's happening, right? That's the kind of big thing that's powerful and that is important for us to be at the table as those things are being built, being designed, being rolled out, and being used to make decisions about our lives. So started Stemettes as a response to that, really. Our ethos was that everything we did was free, it was fun, and there was food, because people like free food. We work across the UK and Ireland, and I know you've got folks around the world, so we opened up during the pandemic, and now most of our events have a virtual element, and so they're hybrid. And it's about folks being able to make informed decisions about their relationship with STEM and STEAM. And so not everyone will necessarily make those STEM subject choices or go and do an apprenticeship or higher study or enter the industry, but everyone is impacted in some way by STEM, the STEM field, STEM knowledge, STEM academia. And so what we're all about is allowing folks to say, okay, cool, it's not just what happens in the classroom, make an informed decision for the fullness of what STEM is and understand how this might show up in your life, build the skills around it, build a network around it, have an awareness of all the different options that are available, and also maybe pick up a little bit of STEM knowledge on the way.
Neha, would you like to add anything else with regards to Stemettes? I know you're a volunteer and you're also studying, but I think your insight would be valuable.
Like I mentioned before, I'm part of the Stemettes Youth Board, which it's a nice way for Stemettes as an organization to kind of get input from the people they're kind of hoping to impact the most. Thankfully, they are very nice and make it work around everyone's schedules, and we're only required to kind of do as much as we can. So it kind of fits in very nicely around studying and everything. But yeah, the youth board, we have discussions over kind of how, what we can do as the youth board to reach people, to promote Stemettes, and being surrounded by all these girls that are all aspiring to go into STEM or exploring STEM. It's just a very nice environment to be in, because I study physics. Even now, most of my course is dominated by males. There's hardly any women in the department, not as much as there should be. So it's just a really nice environment and really nice company to be in.
That's great to hear. I was wondering, as somebody who's worked with major tech companies and now leading various initiatives, how do you see the future of STEM education evolving in the future?
So from where I'm sat, and I know now I'm sure you have some opinions on this too, having not worked in industry. But from where I'm sat, I think we're definitely seeing a move towards, or we'll definitely need to see a move towards folks not just learning the STEM knowledge, but understanding how they learn and how they're going to build on it as it comes. So it's not just that you kind of learn the principles and then we leave it at that and you memorize them, but actually to learn how to synthesize new information and how to say, okay, cool, if this was what the basics were, then here's how it might be applied in different ways. But I think the bigger change is going to be recognizing that different folks will need different elements for the life that they have, right? So not everyone is going to become an academic physicist. Some people will go into industry, some people will be entrepreneurs. And so allowing for folks to have kind of basic literacy as well as then more advanced literacies, I think is definitely something that we'll see. I'm hoping the other element is also having it more cross-disciplinary from the beginning. So they're kind of looking at it in the UK, and I don't know what the conversations are across the world, but this idea that you can't just say this is the science and we just take the science on its own as if it's in a vacuum and as if it's neutral. It's not, right? There's a lot of scientific research, policy making, innovations that are made that end up being either politically, they have a political end, or they've got a moral end, or they've got an ethical end, or they've got a social end. And so I think the other thing is allowing folks to learn that as they pick up the knowledge. So then they come out the other end of whatever education system it is, and they're able to, build technology that's sensitive to the world that it's going into. And then the final piece, definitely seeing, is that STEM education also isn't just for folks when they start their life. So lifelong learning is something that we're having to take really seriously, but actually build the infrastructure to allow folks to not just be that you made a decision at 13 about what you were going to do, and that's something that haunts you or lives with you for the rest of your life, but actually people in their 50s, in their 60s, in their 40s, they're having to what we call reskill, which is kind of learning new skills to allow them to move into a different space, or upskill, which is saying you already have this as a basis, let's take it up a level. And so I think STEM education, we definitely now need to see it as holistic for people across their lives, rather than it being purely about what happens in degree courses or in postgraduate research or in early years and kind of primary or elementary school. Neha, what would you agree with? What do you disagree with that I just said?
I agree with a lot of that. I think making STEM relevant to people is so important. You mentioned that there's different levels of science, and that's completely true. I'm really passionate about science communication, and you'll get these top level scientists that are at the top of their field, but they have no idea how to put across what they do in words that are understandable to the general public or to younger peers. And I think being able to do that is such an important skill to have, and being able to put science into a form where everybody is able to understand it would really help make it so much more useful in the general world. And then coming back to like science education, I think a lot of the science we learn, it's never really put into the context of why it's relevant to us, why we should even bother. You get people saying, I don't need this maths. When am I ever going to need to use Pythagoras? Is there in my real life? Or this law of physics. But I think it's so important to build that into our science education of why it is directly relevant to us, because that would get more people into STEM, including young girls, but just making the public more aware of how important it is good for, I think, just general understanding of how the world works.
What are you seeing, Kelly, as things that are changing up in STEM education, maybe across the world? Any kind of global trends that you're noticing?
Well, with some of the previous episodes that I've had, we've been covering a lot about the usage of AI and the possibilities of AI teachers coming in, helping to personalize learning for students, which I think would be something interesting, as it can be utilized in third world countries to help them have better access to education. I'm also seeing a trend where people are becoming more prone to like career switching. So people not necessarily just staying into one career path. And I got a degree in electronic engineering, but then went on to work in tech. So even now with my short career that I've had, I've already started to see that I've made some changes because the world has just that become that much more broader that you can have much more fluidity in what it is that you want to achieve. But speaking of education, I know that you have really excelled in education from a young age, and your journey has inspired many people. I was curious to know what drives you to keep on pushing those boundaries.
Um, the future is coming. Things are happening. There's a whole world out there. And, if you're not seeing the problems, you're not paying attention, I think, and you might not see a problem daily, but monthly, there'll be things that you spot, things that you see, things that you hear. And whether it'll be things in the news of a tech product that they've built that, has caused some harm or forgotten that an entire gender exists, or whether it's the way that we're seeing science and medical innovations that again serve one community or one type of people and don't serve others. I think there's so many things that it's like actually if you see something, if you see an accident happen live, you do what you can as before the person falls, right? Before you step in and you intervene as much as you can, as much as possible before the fact, because there's nothing you can do. Well, you're limited, right? And what you can do after the fact. And so I think that's one thing that definitely motivates me, or is the reason why I do so much of what I do, because it's important. Like it is important, and folks have done that for me to be able to do all that I'm able to do at this point. I think the other thing is, as Neha has said, and as Neha is on our youth board, there's so much feedback and so much listening that we do to the people that are part of our programs. And part of that is not just, oh, we should have done this way, or we could have included that, or that could, mention something else, but also it's, oh, I'm now at this company and I would have never have done that degree and applied to this company if wasn't at that event 10 years ago. And that happened. I was at a big tech company actually 2 weeks ago, and someone kind of ran up to me before the session and was like, oh my goodness, I came 10 years ago and this is it. And I did that course and I was one of the first people in that cohort, and now I'm here, and it's all because of, being at that Stemettes event. Or it's all because of I won this competition, it's all because we met up with these people on Stemettes Society and we did this, or Neha's been in the national press, like all of these things that are happening that are ensuring that young people can break some of those barriers, right, and also step into their true potential. And all of that, if you're doing that genuinely, or you're doing that at the scale that we're doing it, there ends up being fewer questions for why you go to work every day, why you get up, why you push against, why, even though there's funding that's being cut for particular things, or there's Nobel Prizes that aren't given to people that they're supposed to be given to, you still know that there's impact and there's change, and these things don't happen overnight. They don't happen within a year, they happen within a generation. And so you have to, again, keep working on that. It's an accident in slow motion. And so we've got a little bit more time, right, to do the things that need to happen.
Just a quick break to remind you to check out our LinkedIn page. It's called Women in STEM Podcast. On there, we have a range of exclusive content that you will definitely enjoy. So please make sure to go and give us a follow there. And if you're enjoying the podcast, please consider rating it on any of your favorite podcast platforms. Thank you for your support. I wanted to know if you'd be able to give us any insight into your background and what inspired you to go to university to study what you've studied, and what inspired you to get into STEM.
It's a really good question, and it's really relevant to what's just been said, in the sense of these turning points in our life that can mean we end up somewhere completely different to where we might have. So I come from my family came to England as asylum seekers. My family has nobody in my family kind of works in industry or in science. I don't, there's no sort of STEMmy jobs. I don't know anyone doing any sort of STEM related jobs. And I was really much on my own when it came to exploring science, but it was always something I enjoyed, and I understood maths and science well from a young age, because for me it was like, it was logic and it made sense, and there's a right answer. And then I think over the years I just realized how much there was to it. I started kind of looking out for stuff by myself. I used to Google for outreach and STEM opportunities I could get involved in. I was very kind of on it in high school. I would just Google the words, like I would Google a university's name followed by the word outreach or something along those lines. And through that, I got involved in outreach programs at Imperial, actually, and then some at King's College as well. And it was only through those and exploring STEM beyond the curriculum, through those programs and through YouTube and having those platforms out there, that I realized how much more there was to STEM than what we get taught in the curriculum, and that it wasn't just, the rules haven't all been figured out, and there's so much more to kind of learn, and there's so much more to do. And I couldn't leave it at that. I wanted to learn more. So I got really interested into physics through all of that. And then so I thought, I need to go study it more at university. I need to learn more about this. So yeah.
That's great to hear. I'm really glad that you were able to share part of your story and how you got interested into STEM. I know for me personally, I got interested in STEM when I was around about 14 years old. I essentially was at that point contemplating what it is that I need to do for the rest of my life. And so I got onto the internet and found like a career test, and engineering came up, and I was like, oh, like a mechanic? And then I started doing more research, and I luckily came across an organization called Engineering Tomorrow, and it basically helped facilitate making you aware of different career options that are available. And from there, I kind of created my own mini career path of going to university, understanding what A levels I need to take, and the rest is history. So I think even at a young age, you can be influenced and kind of have that growth mindset as to what it is that you want to look forward to in the future. And so having representation and role models so you can be able to see that and be aware of these different career options are really important, and something that I'm always trying to make sure that I explore on my podcast. And I wanted to talk a bit more about your book, She's in Control. I love the way how like you spelt it, and I'm trying to hold back me like fangirling, but I just wanted to know if you could give those who have not read your book a bit of insight about the book and why you chose to write it.
Sure. So I think you and me have similar stories in that I did a career survey at 13, and that said I should be a management consultant or a systems analyst, and I've gotten on a bit of a pathway, I guess, to get there. But Stemettes focuses from 5 all the way up to 25, which is your kind of formative years, ish, roughly before you then make that first career decision and start, some sort of kind of career, like employment journey. And we stop at 26. So when it's your 26th birthday, we tend to kind of offboard folks off programs, and we invite you to come back as a volunteer, or you join the alumni community, and you're involved in other ways, but you're not actually allowed to come and sit with the kids, basically, to engage in our programs. But of course, learning doesn't stop at 26. And there are lots of people who are over 26 who actually would benefit from having that Stemettes message or that understanding, but unfortunately just weren't born in time, or were born too early for us to have existed, to have done that. So the book is almost Stemettes in book form, but for folks, which was I was able to explore more advanced or different concepts for someone that's already working, already has a little bit more independence, is already economically active, and probably already has their own hobbies, sense of identity and history, a lot more than someone who's just starting out in life. And so the book is all about understanding and developing your own relationship with tech, and whether that's you becoming a technologist, working in an industry, or going for further study, or stepping into a tech role, or even a non-tech role at a tech company, or that's you not doing any of the above, but you exploring, hey, if I knit, or if I'm a lawyer, or if I'm a teacher, if I am a mother, or if I am insert name of whatever you might be as a woman, or insert name of whatever women you might know who don't have a great relationship with technology, this book was all about how do you start to open that up? How do you explore? How do you fight the fear? How do you fight the ignorance or the knowledge you might not have? How do you fight the sometimes negative experience you might have had at school that's meant that you're like, oh, me and my maths teacher didn't get on, so maybe this tech thing isn't for me. And kind of step into the fact that actually, no, it definitely can be for you, whether you liked your maths teacher or not. I mean, lots of people have interesting relationships with their music teacher and they still listen to music, right? But also, if you're, as you step in, be mindful of to explore the relationship between technology and what you know, as well as here are some practical tips and guidelines and exercises to do for you to lead your own path and your own journey, because each of us needs to be able to express that voice and understand how technology relates to the decisions that are being made about our life, or the tools that are being used around us, or the way that technology is being deployed in work, in healthcare systems, and all these other places that we show up in as members of society. So that's what the book is about. It's a practical guide for women to take back tech, no matter who they are, no matter what stage of life that they're at. But if you're 25 or under, don't read the book, just come to a Stemettes event.
Speaking about Stemettes event, do you be able to paint us an image of what kind of happens at these events, what people should be expecting, and what events you've done in the past, and if you have any upcoming?
I might not be the most well-placed person to answer this question, because I'm relatively new to the youth board, and I joined the youth board very quickly after discovering Stemettes itself. So I have not been to many events, but from what I know, we have hackathons, we have speakers. I've heard from people's experiences about how fun these can be and how they've kind of brought all their friends along and their friends' and they've kind of created a whole group, and they've just come, and they've come regularly, and they've come to every single one that they can. So these Stemettes events, I guess, it's opportunities you wouldn't get normally, opportunity to explore STEM in a way you wouldn't get to do on your own, and you wouldn't get to do if Stemettes wasn't there, basically. So I think and the fact that they're free and they're not, anybody can just kind of come, I think it's an amazing thing to have. We also have like a Stemettes Society online kind of social media platform, you could call it, and that itself is a whole other way of like interaction. There's hundreds of girls, I don't know exact numbers, thousands maybe, of girls on there that are just talking and asking questions from each other and learning from each other. And there's opportunities being shared on there that, one girl might know about and another might not. And so I just think it's a very good, the whole network is an amazing kind of way of sharing knowledge. Yeah.
The only thing, so Nessa said she's not been, she does know a lot. She's knowledge. In addition to, so yes, we do have the Stemettes Society, we do our events as well, and then we also have our programs. So these are longer term programs, which the youth board actually counts as one of them, where young people get together and work in cohorts, or kind of get to explore different things in cohorts. So the youth board are exploring, what we offer, what we do, and kind of giving us feedback on it, which is why Neha is able to provide all of that, so she knows what she's talking about. But also we have a mentoring program that is open to folks in the UK, and some of our cohorts are open to Irish young people as well. We have our school clubs, and so we've got kind of things that are long term, so you kind of commit to for a number of months. Like Neha is on the youth board for at least a year. We've got the short-term events like Neha described, which are the hacks, or the certification academies, where you get to pick up for free a qualification in Agile, in Cyber, or in Python. And there's others that we're looking to add in the new year. And it's panel events, it's school trips, there's lots of different things like that. And then, as Neha said, it's also a content platform. So we're doing a little bit of work on our socials, which is a little bit of what Neha's working on with us as well. But we've got our newsletters, we've got the Stemettes Society, and we've got something called the Stemettes Zine, which is like our online advice column as well for folks and STEM careers knowledge. So lots of things on offer, but I think the idea is that, a bit like yourself, like both of you have mentioned actually, like searching and looking for opportunities, we're trying to put as many things out there as possible to connect you to industry, to academia, to entrepreneurs. And so where you're a young person that might not be necessarily allowed to access these spaces, we're able to open up
As somebody who's worked alongside a lot of young women who are interested in STEM careers, and based on our conversations and your experience, what's one piece of advice you would like to give to young women that you often feel like you have to repeat this specifically? One piece of advice.
So a piece of advice I do find myself giving quite a lot is don't do this on your own. So links that come with all manner of queries that relate to confidence or feeling like they're the only person that's in a space or the only person that's ever tried something, or they're going to be the only person, that will ever have succeeded or will have ever failed on something in particular. And so my advice always ends up being, don't do this on your own. Find a crew, there are so many networks out there, and some come and go, and not all of them, just because it's a network for people that live in a particular postcode and you live in that postcode doesn't mean that will be the perfect network for you. There are many more things about yourself that aren't just about your postcode. They might be about your heritage, they might be about your interests, they might be about your hobbies, they might be about your skills, they might be about your weaknesses. So my thing is always spend the time, invest the time to find a network that you can celebrate with and that you can commiserate with, so that then, often the question that's being asked, if you're in a network, you'd know that actually that's a thing that's happened before, or you'd know that that academic does things that way, or you know that that course has a reputation for this, but in reality, it's that. And so my number one advice always is just don't do this on your own. Have folks that you can compare notes with, so that you don't end up feeling like you are the only, or you don't end up feeling lonely. Or
Naya, do you have a piece of advice that you'd like to offer young women who are interested in STEM careers?
Stay curious. I feel like when it comes to STEM, that's probably something I always tell myself, to just enjoy the journey and stay curious and explore everything you can, but also just in general, not necessarily related to STEM. I think it's really just like taking your own path. I think in a world of hustle culture nowadays and the LinkedIn posts that are like never ending, there's so much pressure to kind of get everything right the first time round. And it's really easy to forget that taking year out, switching the course you initially decided to do, or switching careers is an option, and it won't ruin your life in the long run, and it's completely okay. I think that's so easily forgotten because people think they've just wasted time if they've done that. And so whenever I talk to younger people, I always tell them, it's okay.
How best can people connect with you?
Oh, great question. So we have best way to connect at an event or program. We've got our main website, stemettes.org. We have social channels. I'll mention Instagram, and I'll say a little bit about TikTok. There's another one that most folks use that I'm debating as each day goes by whether really we should be there or not. LinkedIn as well. But I think, drop us a note, drop us an email, team@stemettes.org, and we'll see how we can help. And it might be that, you join the Stemettes Society, and that's the best way for folks to help you. There's a conversation on at the moment about someone's trying to choose their options for A-levels, and other people are talking through, how they've done them. Like, there's all those kinds of things, different opportunities folks are posting, from F1 to university, open days to all sorts. So I think Stemettes Society probably is the best place actually to kind of come in and get a flavour for who's around. And then also we list all our events in there as well as on the website. And then, that would be the main.
Listeners, if you've enjoyed this episode, please make sure to subscribe to this podcast on your favorite streaming platform, leave a review and rating to help us reach more listeners, and follow our social medias, the latest updates and behind the scene content. Join us next week for another exciting episode. And until then, keep exploring the world of STEM and empowering women in STEM.